The antique shop was bathed in the deep shadows of an autumn dusk. Sunlight through the stained glass gently illuminated the sleeping antiques. The white-haired shopkeeper, as usual, stood by the window, staring out at the street. Once, her twin sons always painted together. One morning 10 years ago, they vanished suddenly. "Mom, we have something we must protect," they had said, their last words. Left in the studio was an unfinished painting. And a cryptic message: the truth only becomes clear when seen from two perspectives. Where could they both have gone? Just then, the shop's brass bell chimed softly. And a young mother with her little boy entered. This moment would unexpectedly reveal hidden truths, transcending generations. The destinies of those gathered in the old antique shop quietly, yet surely, began to shift. In a quiet residential area of Boston, autumn dusk cast deep shadows. Olivia Winterson, who had run her antique shop for over 40 years, quietly wiped the windows. The setting sun through the stained glass created colorful bands of light on the floor. As the old wooden floor creaked, a young delivery man stood there with an oil painting. "Ms. Winterson, a delivery from the auction house." Olivia adjusted her reading glasses and carefully accepted the painting. It depicted a dusky Central Park from the 1950s, the era's unique brushstrokes notable. But what caught her eye were the two signatures at the bottom left. Both reading Tia Harrison, but subtly different. "Strange," she murmured. With 40 years of experience, she sensed this was more than mere coincidence. The next morning, the brass bell chimed again as a young mother. And her small son entered. "Hello, I'm Sarah Conway. We spoke on the phone," she called out. Beside her stood a boy about 7, his eyes wide with curiosity as he looked around. "Oh, about your grandmother's estate." Olivia responded with a smile, her voice carrying the warm authority of years. While Sarah began discussing the appraisal, her son Ben explored the shop, 19th century ship models, old globes, and paintings from various eras sparking his imagination. Soon, he stopped in front of the oil painting that had just arrived. "Grandma, this painting is weird," Ben exclaimed. "There are two signatures." The innocent observation rekindled Olivia's curiosity about the signatures. She had been pondering since the day before. "You noticed well, Ben?" Olivia crouched beside the boy. "Do you paint?" Ben nodded shyly. "Yes. But I can't draw as well as everyone else. There's no good or bad in art. It's about expressing what you feel inside in your own way." Olivia smiled gently, and Sarah approached them. "Ben is a very sensitive child. He notices the smallest details." "Yes. He has a keen eye." Olivia nodded quietly, her gaze inadvertently returning to the painting with the double signatures. In the twilight, the twin T. Harrison signatures seemed nostalgic. Long-sealed memories began to stir quietly within her. Yet, Olivia continued without changing her expression. "This painting is from the 1950s. There are still many mysteries asleep in the art world then." Sarah sighed, reaching for the items she had brought for appraisal, but hesitated for a moment. "I'm honored to hear that, but I've been a bit worried about my son recently." She lowered her voice so Ben wouldn't hear. "He's been losing confidence during art time at school. The teacher keeps pointing out technical details." Watching Ben intently examine the old globe, Sarah spoke. "But I feel something special in him. It's frustrating that I, as his mother, can't bring it out." "I see." Olivia glanced at an ebony cabinet, seemingly deep in thought. She had been considering using the spacious shop in a new way, particularly for young souls passionate about art. Actually, I've been thinking about starting a small painting class here. A place not just for technique, but to touch the essence of art. Sarah's eyes lit up. That would be wonderful. If you'd like, I'd be happy to have Ben as the first student. Sarah looked toward her son, who had begun to lose interest in the globe, and wandered restlessly around the shop. A somewhat lonely shadow seemed to fall on his small back. Ben. Sarah called out gently. Hey, there's something wonderful. They're starting a painting class here. Would you like to join? The boy stopped, turned slowly toward his mother, and something flickered in his eyes. Then, his entire expression brightened as if lit by the morning sun. Really? I'd like to try. For the first time in a while, Sarah felt she saw such a vivid light of hope on her son's face. Weeks later, Olivia's antique shop transformed into a small painting class every Saturday afternoon. On the first Saturday, Olivia prepared diligently from early morning. She arranged antique wooden easels and maximized the light from the north-facing windows. She adorned the walls with replicas of masterpieces from art history, creating a space where even beginners felt a natural surge of creative desire. The brass doorbell rang with a refreshing sound as Ben, clutching a brand new sketchbook, entered with great anticipation. Let's begin. Olivia welcomed him warmly. Today, we embark on a special adventure. In the first lesson, Olivia taught Ben the basics of drawing. But she emphasized something more important. Art isn't just about drawing forms. It's about discovering the stories behind them. By the sunlit window, Olivia continued her narrative. By the second week, neighbors had noticed Ben's transformation and began talking about Olivia's class. The boy who once seemed unsure of himself now spoke excitedly about his paintings. Jessica and Julia's mother heard about the class's reputation when she met Sarah at the supermarket and decided to take her twin daughters to the antique shop. The girls each had distinct styles. Jessica favored bold colors, while Julia excelled at delicate line work. However, their school art classes seldom recognized these differences as unique talents. Olivia spotted the potential in each sister's abilities and praised their contrasting features. As she watched them, something resonated within her, like an old bell ringing in her memory. How curious! One day, while comparing the girls' artworks, Olivia mused. Though they draw separately, there's something harmonious about their work. As she finished speaking, the setting sun striking the dual-signed painting on the wall shone briefly, as if responding. The twins' mother talked about the class in her mother's group, sparking interest from Michael's shy mother, and soon he joined as a new student. At first, Michael kept to himself, but Ben naturally started talking to him, and they gradually became friends. Michael's paintings expressed deep emotions that words could not convey. The class gradually became more than just a place to practice painting. The children discussed each other's work and sometimes collaborated on a single canvas. Amid these interactions, Olivia felt echoes of something long lost in their pure creativity. On a Saturday afternoon deep in autumn, the atmosphere in the class shifted. Jessica and Julia shared a canvas for the first time in a joint creation. Their breathing synchronized naturally, and their individual styles harmoniously blended on the canvas. Olivia paused as she observed their work, feeling a familiar warmth where the sisters' brushstrokes met. It eerily resembled the unique atmosphere of the dual-signed painting. Wonderful. When two perspectives merge, such deep expression emerges. Olivia spoke thoughtfully. Just then, Ben exclaimed, "Huh? There's something written on the back of this painting." He had found a yellowed piece of paper wedged in the frame of the dual-signed painting. Olivia gasped, despite having looked at the painting. For over a month, no one had noticed it. Let's see. Olivia carefully removed the paper. It was a newspaper clipping from the 1950s. The faded print revealed a headline about the Harrison brothers. The article described twin painters active in New York in 1952, where one handled theory and the other technique, working together as a single artist. Just like my. Olivia swallowed her words. The air in the classroom seemed to tense for a moment. Olivia? Ben approached, concerned. His intuitive kindness seemed to see right through to the depths of an adult's heart. It's all right. Olivia tried to smile, but her eyes were deep in thought. As the evening light cast a soft shadow on her profile, Michael quietly set down his paintbrush, and Jessica and Julia also stopped their work. The children sensed that this moment held a special significance. I had twin sons who painted too. Olivia began, flipping through an old sketchbook. It contained several unfinished sketches. Both had different talents, just like you kids. The children, usually never shown the sketchbook, approached quietly. These drawings will forever remain unfinished. Olivia touched one of the sketches. Because my twin sons, Thomas and Terence, vanished suddenly 10 years ago. The classroom fell silent, as if time had stopped. Michael gasped. And the twin sisters gripped each other's hands more tightly. They, too, were pursuing a single art together. But one day, suddenly, they were gone. Olivia gently caressed the old leather cover, her thoughts racing back to that autumn 10 years ago. At that time, her sons were deeply involved in investigating the whereabouts of old artworks lost during the post-war chaos. They collected documents fervently, often discussing late into the night. Olivia, worried, would tell them not to overdo it. But they only responded, "It's all right, Mom. We have something we must do." Gradually, the sons who used to joke during breakfast and seemed happy painting in the studio began to bear a serious demeanor. They discussed something fervently in the studio, responding dismissively even to their mother's calls. Olivia, concerned about their state, would often bring warm tea to the studio. However, as she approached, and that morning, the brothers were unusually dressed formally. "We have an important appointment," Terence had said, and Thomas added, "We'll be back soon." Olivia watched them leave with a tightening feeling in her chest, not imagining it would be their last goodbye. But the evening came, and they did not return, nor did they contact her at night. When Olivia entered the studio, all that was left was an unfinished painting, with both their signatures and a short letter. The painting bore the cryptic message, "The truth only becomes clear when seen from two perspectives." Despite the police investigation, no clues were found, and only time passed. Where did they both go? Every morning, Olivia stood by the window, waiting for her son's return, leaving their paints and palettes as if they could resume work anytime. She would make 2 cups of their favorite coffee, letting the aroma linger until it cooled on the table. Every time she saw a tall young man in the street, she would follow him. If she heard a similar voice, she would involuntarily turn around. On their birthdays, she always bought a cake and placed 2 candles on it. "Stay well," she would whisper before blowing them out. Olivia believed her sons were on an important mission. Thus, they would definitely return, having completed it. This belief was not just a mother's intuition but also her prayer. As light streamed through the studio window, illuminating the still wet paint, she thought somewhere, surely, they were painting together. And one day, they would return to this place. "Miss Olivia?" Ben's words snapped Olivia back to reality. "I'm sorry. I was just thinking about my sons. I hope they come back soon." Ben's straightforward childlike words brought tears to Olivia's eyes. That night, as the store's closing time approached, the children began to pack up. But Ben was still eagerly sketching in front of the dual-signed painting. "Ben, it's about time," Sarah called as she arrived to pick him up. "Hey, Mom, look," Ben said without turning around. "There's another painting hidden in this one." Sarah stood by her son, peering at the sketch he had made. Ben had meticulously copied the shadows and light arrangements from the painting. But his lines revealed a different pattern that had been overlooked in the original. Olivia approached, gasping. "It's almost like a cipher. This arrangement, it looks familiar." She squinted at it, her expression suddenly changing. "My sister left a diary with a similar pattern." Sarah was momentarily puzzled by Olivia's words. "Your sister?" "Yes. But my sister passed away in a maritime accident 10 years ago. I remember seeing a similar pattern in the diary she left behind." Jessica and Julia were pulling out their sketchbooks. "We found something too," Julia said. "When we paint together, things become visible." The sisters overlaid the lines they had drawn, and a pattern emerged that closely resembled the hidden shapes in the Harrison brothers' painting. "This is..." Olivia's voice trembled. "It's just like the message my sons left behind." Outside, the deep darkness enveloped everything, and the shop's lighting softly illuminated their faces. The old antiques seemed to stand quietly, like witnesses to a new secret. Michael, usually shy, spoke with unexpected certainty. "This painting definitely hides someone's message." The next Sunday, Sarah had found an old cardboard box in her family's storage. Dusting it off, she discovered her sister Catherine's belongings, undisturbed for 10 years. On top was a leather-bound diary tied with a blue ribbon, underneath which were sketchbooks and photographs from her art school days. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the diary. As she neared the last pages, the number of shapes and symbols drawn between the lines increased. Then, 2 days before the accident, she recognized a familiar pattern on the page. Early Monday morning, Sarah brought the diary to the antique shop. Olivia had opened the shop early, waiting for her. "Look at this." Sarah pulled out the old diary and handed it to Olivia. "It's my sister's diary, from her belongings. I couldn't bring myself to read it properly back then because of the grief." Sarah paused as if searching for the right words, then continued. "My sister was a curator at a museum, researching the circulation of art post-war. Now, reading this diary, it seems she found something significant about the Harrison brothers' work." Olivia readjusted her reading glasses and peered at the yellowed pages. The diary meticulously recorded the whereabouts of art pieces. In the 1950s, the Harrison brothers held exhibitions everywhere. Strangely, right before these exhibitions, several pieces would disappear as if stolen, and then vanish. But perhaps they weren't stolen but hidden intentionally. And if you look closely at the brothers' paintings, Patterns like maps indicating where the lost art pieces were stored appear in the landscapes. Even their signatures seem to mark these places. Perhaps they were trying to accuse something through their art. Turning the page, the tone of the writing grew more urgent. Someone has noticed my research. But I need to follow the clues left by the Harrison brothers. This truth must be told to someone. Under the last date, a sentence almost like a prophecy was written. Even if I disappear, the truth will surely be revealed. The eyes of the next generation will find what is hidden. 10 years ago, I was told my sister died in a maritime accident. Sarah began quietly, looking out the window. They said the boat she was on sank, but her body was never found. Now, reading this diary, I'm not even sure if it was a real accident. That's terrible. Olivia placed her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Morning light stretched their shadows long across the floor. Only the old pillar clock's ticking broke the heavy silence. Sarah and Olivia continued to read Catherine's diary. In the antique shop's small reception room. Also, look at this. Sarah pointed to a page. My sister seemed to have been researching the Harrison brothers' work. She thought something was always hidden in their paintings. Catherine's diary contained detailed observations of the brothers' artwork, arrangements of shadows, overlaps of colors, and especially the relationship between the two signatures. She believed these were more than mere artistic expressions. Their paintings are like ciphers. The truth doesn't appear unless you look from two perspectives. Olivia gasped. The truth doesn't appear unless you look from two perspectives? My son said something similar. She trailed off, stood up, and pulled out an envelope from an old chest. Inside was the last note her sons had left 10 years ago. Laying out the two letters, mysterious similarities emerged, the choice of words, the patterns drawn, and above all, the phrase two perspectives. It's as if they were chasing the same truth. Then Ben, who had been drawing quietly by Sarah's side, suddenly stood up, holding his sketchbook. I knew it. Miss Olivia, I found something. Ben opened his sketchbook, filled with sketches of the dual-signed painting from various angles. Last night, while I was drawing at home, I realized something. When you turn this painting upside down. He carefully flipped his sketchbook. The shadows of trees and buildings appeared to form letters. Look, it seems like something is written here. Maybe dates and places? Sarah and Olivia exchanged a look. The dates noted in Catherine's diary were eerily close. Wait. Sarah reopened the diary. The last place my sister was researching, it was definitely. Olivia squinted behind her reading glasses. An old gallery district in New York. The place where the Harrison brothers held their last exhibition in the 1950s. And the place she visited just before the accident. Sarah's voice trembled. Ben, listening to their conversation, turned another page. And this shape of the shadow is odd too. Miss Olivia, look at this. He pointed to the darkest shadow in the painting. It clearly resembled the outline of a building. Olivia caught her breath. Could it be? The shape matched the old studio where her sons were last seen heading. Mom? Ben tugged on Sarah's sleeve. Is this building still there? Let me check. Sarah searched on her smartphone. It's still there. It seems it's not used anymore. Olivia slowly stood up, determination clear in her expression in the morning light. I'll go there. I feel like the message my sons wanted to leave behind is there. Sarah hugged the diary to her chest and stepped forward. I'll go too. I want to verify the truth my sister left behind with my own eyes. Noticing his mother's serious expression, Ben looked up worriedly and said in a small voice, I want to go too. Sarah hesitated for a moment but, seeing the determination in her son's eyes, nodded gently. Right. If it weren't for you, this mystery might never have been solved. She stroked her son's head gently and smiled at Olivia. Let's go together to find the truth. The following weekend, they visited the old studio. The red brick building stood in a corner of the once bustling arts district, as if time had stopped. In the morning mist, the windows reflected light like clouded eyes. This is the studio my son's headed to last. Olivia's voice trembled as she touched the rusty handle at the entrance. Sarah held a flashlight and cautiously opened the door. The lock was not engaged, and stepping inside, the creaking of the wooden floor broke the silence. The dusty air was faintly tinged with the smell of oil paint and turpentine. Watch your step. Sarah held Ben's hand. Inside, it was as if time had stopped, with old easels and painting supplies left untouched. Several faded sketches were pinned to the walls. Ah! Ben suddenly stopped and pointed to the floor. This shadow is strange. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting complex patterns on the floor. Upon closer inspection, it was the same shape hidden in the painting. Amazing! Sarah gasped. Maybe this building itself is part of a message. Ben followed the shadows deeper into the room, where an old fireplace stood, with a framed picture hanging above it. At that moment, Ben suddenly pointed to another part of the room. Mom, Miss Olivia. There's someone over there. Olivia and Sarah turned around, hearing noises from the next room. Is someone there? The sound of someone hastily standing up and a startled voice followed. When she appeared in the room, Sarah locked eyes with her. No way. Sarah was at a loss for words. The woman, with streaks of gray in her hair, bore a strong resemblance to her sister, presumed dead. Catherine, is that you, Catherine? Sarah. How could? She stood frozen, recognizing her sister. As the confused siblings stared at each other, another voice of surprise came from another room. Could it be, Mom? Terence and Thomas hurriedly appeared. There, they saw their mother for the first time in 10 years. The room fell silent, filled with an unexpected reunion. Olivia took a trembling step forward. Her sons appeared blurry through her tears. Oh, Terence. Thomas. She spoke in a hoarse voice. I'm so glad you're alive. The twin brothers looked at each other, then slowly walked towards their mother. Their faces mixed with 10 years of regret and relief. I'm sorry, Mom, for disappearing without saying anything. Terence apologized with tears. But we couldn't risk putting you in danger. Thomas continued. Hey, Mom. Ben said in a quiet voice. Look over there. At the back of the room, several old canvases were leaning against the wall. They were unfinished paintings, each with 2 distinct brushstrokes mixed together, similar to the dual-signed painting. This painting, it's the same as the one Miss Olivia has. It's painted by 2 people. At Ben's words, Terence and Thomas exchanged glances. The young boy intuitively understood that both sets of brothers had been working together on a single artwork. You're amazing. Yes. Ben's perspective is wonderful. It's thanks to him that we got here. Olivia looked at Ben fondly, and he appeared slightly proud. Next to him, Catherine took her sister's hand. Years of silence weighed heavily on her shoulders. Sarah, I had something I needed to do. It all started with a simple post-war art investigation. But as I researched, I learned that the Harrison brothers had stored valuable art pieces. Somewhere during the post-war chaos, a considerable amount. Catherine paused, her eyes downcast as if recalling the past. But we weren't the only ones who knew. It was like a treasure hunt, with people scouring the city. We were looking to protect the historical value of the artworks, but they were. She shook her head. That's why we had to disappear. Those people targeted us. From 10 years ago until today. Terence explained as he opened an old trunk. We've been following the truth hidden in the Harrison brothers' paintings, trying to find that storage place. All this time. I was so worried when you two suddenly disappeared. I even talked to the police, but they couldn't find anything. Mom, I'm really sorry for making you worry. Thomas hugged Olivia again. So how did you meet and what have you been doing? We started investigating together at first. That's when we met Catherine. She was also getting close to the truth and seemed to be in danger. Afterward, I traveled the world as an art restorer, researching while Terence and Thomas stayed in the country, following the Harrison brothers' trail. We compared the information Catherine collected abroad, gradually getting closer to the truth. That's how it was. But you mentioned you were in danger. Are you safe now? Or are you still being chased? Olivia asked worriedly, to which Catherine smiled. Actually, to avoid that danger, we decided to completely disappear. At that time, we made it seem like I had died. And Terence and Thomas also took on the appearance of having vanished. That strategy worked, and they believe we've given up. Their search range is now expanding out of the city. Our existence and this building should be completely out of their sight now. So now is the chance to decode the cipher. Inside the trunk were numerous photos and documents. Pictures of artworks looted during the war, records of their secretive trades, and Harrison brothers' paintings with ciphers indicating locations. But why here? Sarah asked. Why were you in this place today? This was our workshop. Thomas answered, looking around the studio. We occasionally came back to organize new information. The cipher Ben found, it indicated the dates we regularly visit here. It's by chance that Mom came today. But maybe it's fate. We just got the last piece of evidence. So, the place depicted in this painting. Olivia pointed to the dual-signed painting, and Catherine nodded vigorously. Yes. The artworks that the Harrison brothers tried to protect are hidden there. They were trying to communicate that to us through their paintings. But it's a place that can never be found alone. It requires two eyes, two perspectives. Ben, who had been silently listening to the adults, suddenly spoke up as he flipped through his sketchbook with a shy expression. I think the place in this painting is nearby. I sketched it on my way here this morning. As the old floorboards creaked, the adults gathered around Ben. His sketchbook showed a drawing of a corner of the warehouse district. But the young boy had drawn the same place, from a different angle than the original painting. Wait. Catherine gazed intently at the sketch. This is a view from the back alley. Indeed. Terence gasped. We've always looked at this landscape from the front. But from the other side. Thomas continued his brother's thought. The shadows of the buildings look completely different. And at their intersecting point, there's an entrance to an underground warehouse. Sarah, placing her hand on Ben's shoulder, was amazed by her son's casual discovery. Olivia quietly watched, deeply moved, as the mystery her sons had been chasing for years was about to be unraveled by a sketch from a child's morning walk. "Let's go check the site right now." Catherine stood up decisively. However, Olivia shook her head. "First, we should contact the police. If it's the truth we've long pursued, let's reveal it properly." Terence and Thomas exchanged looks and slowly nodded, a sense of relief that seemed to restore something lost during their 10 years of silence appearing in their expressions. Terence stood by the window, looking out over the cityscape, and murmured, "We can finally spend time together with Mom, can't we?" Hours later, the warehouse district was noisy with the sound of police sirens. The hidden entrance to the underground warehouse, indicated by Ben's sketch, was found. Beyond a rusty iron door, a dim staircase led downwards. The air was heavy and damp, filled with a silence as if time had stopped. The police forensic team cautiously inspected the site, and once safety was confirmed, a team of experts descended into the basement. Catherine was allowed to accompany them. She descended the stairs step by step, as if opening a door to the past, her flashlight illuminating the dust that told of the years gone by. When the door to the underground warehouse was opened, everyone gasped. There, as indicated by the Harrison brothers' cipher, were numerous art pieces looted during the war, preserved in a specially treated condition. Oil paintings, sculptures, and various crafts were carefully packed and placed in a climate-controlled environment. "It's like a sleeping museum," Catherine whispered, as the experts began photographing and recording. Terence carefully lifted the cover off one of the paintings. "This is the last piece painted by the Harrison brothers." It was an unfinished painting, the differing brushstrokes abruptly ending, as if recording the moment they were trying to denounce the truth. The investigation continued for over a week. The discovered artworks were meticulously checked by experts, each item carefully recorded. As more and more pieces were found in the back of the underground warehouse, their number exceeded 100. Surprisingly, most of the pieces were in a condition that could be restored. "The preservation is remarkable," an expert exclaimed in admiration. "Clearly, someone anticipated future discovery and stored these with utmost care." Old devices designed to maintain constant temperature and humidity were still quietly operating. "Ben, look." Sarah called her son over. She was holding a stack of old newspapers. "This is from 1950. It's about the last exhibition of the Harrison brothers." Ben peered next to his mother at the yellowed paper. The photo showed the two painters standing side by side, their expressions filled with resolve as if they knew something was about to happen. As they sorted through the newspapers, another surprising discovery emerged. The Harrison brothers had left detailed records of the lost artworks during the post-war chaos. The records detailed when each piece disappeared, the routes they took, and even the names of those involved. It was more than just a record. It was a meticulous investigative report. They must have believed that the truth would eventually come to light, Catherine said, looking down at a record sheet. "That's why they left such careful records." Olivia silently observed her son's work. Terence and Thomas discussed with experts, checked records, and occasionally laughed as if remembering old times. Their demeanor was no longer that of fugitives but of artists fulfilling a mission. "Mom?" Terence approached quietly during a break. "We've always walked the path we believed was right. But that choice caused deep sorrow for you, and that was the hardest part." His voice was laden with emotions he had kept inside for years. Olivia took her son's hand, stained with the characteristic marks of a painter. "You had the same intentions as the Harrison brothers. To protect art, to convey the truth." She looked directly into her son's eyes. "I am proud of you." Thomas joined in, and the three embraced quietly. Unspoken emotions quietly merged. The slight light filtering into the underground warehouse gently enveloped. The family reunited after 10 years. Later, Terence and Thomas set up a small studio in a corner of their mother's shop, starting to paint their feelings openly. "Look, Mom," Terence said while showing a new painting. "No need for ciphers anymore." But the meaning of painting together hasn't changed. Meanwhile, Sarah and Catherine filled their days with mundane conversations, making up for lost time. "Remember when we were kids, and we used to paint together?" Sarah suddenly recalled. Catherine smiled nostalgically. "Yes. Even back then, we liked different colors." And so, the sisters talked late into the night. Catherine began to share what she had seen over the 10 years. A mix of painful memories and stories of encounters that had given her courage. "I'm tired of running. I want to live as my true self from now on." "That sounds right." Olivia's antique shop gradually took on the character of a cultural salon in the area. In addition to children's art classes, small study groups discussing art and history were held. Catherine spoke there about the stories held by artworks. Artworks carry more than just aesthetic value. They are mirrors reflecting their times and sometimes messengers of hidden truths. On the day after the warehouse investigation settled, Olivia decided to hold a special exhibition at her shop titled Art Conveying Truth. The small exhibit would feature the dual-signed painting and an explanation of the hidden cipher. And the first floor's large room was to display artworks created in the children's art class as symbols of hope for the future. Ben was eagerly involved in preparing. He sketched the warehouse district in various angles, capturing different expressions of the same place under different lights. Even the same place can look so different depending on how you see it, Michael said, impressed. "Yeah. That's why you can't understand the real thing with just one point of view." As the preparations were completed by evening, Olivia was alone, wiping the shop's windows. The setting sun through the stained glass cast colorful bands of light on the floor. In that light, she quietly smiled. The sorrow and joy. Everything had been part of a meaningful journey. Outside, a new season's wind began to blow. And on the morning of the exhibition, Olivia opened the shop earlier than usual. Under the stained glass illuminated by the morning light, she remembered that cold morning light from 10 years ago, the last time she saw her sons. And now, in the same light, a new story was beginning. The first visitors were local art enthusiasts. Among them, a particularly striking figure was a woman who had taught at a local art school for many years. She stood transfixed in front of the dual-signed painting, carefully interpreting the hidden meanings in the artwork. "Art has the power to convey truths beyond time," she said quietly. "This piece seems like a testament to that." Olivia nodded deeply in agreement. A quiet understanding flowed between the two art lovers in the exhibit hall, where Harrison Brothers' paintings and their explanations were displayed alongside photographs of the discovered artworks. Catherine carefully explained the provenance of each piece, not just as stories of art, but as narratives of people tossed by the post-war turmoil. "This artwork embodies the prayers of a family." Catherine pointed to a painting During the war, they risked their lives to protect this painting. Sometimes, art is a record of the soul. Sarah listened intently to her sister's words, reflecting on the past decade. When I heard that my sister had died in an accident, all I could do was accept it. I had no idea such a great truth was hidden. But now I understand. My sister was risking her life to protect something. At the exhibition, the children's artworks also garnered significant attention, especially a collaborative piece by twin sisters. One's bold use of color and the other's delicate line work met on the canvas, creating an unexpected harmony. The strong touches of red and blue mingled, with meticulous contours, stirring depths in the viewers' hearts. It's as if two different souls are conversing on a single canvas. An art teacher remarked, moved. From this work, you can see the new possibilities of art that arise from acknowledging differences. On the other hand, sketches of the warehouse district also exuded a unique presence. Drawn at different times of day, morning, noon, and evening, the same scenes captured the subtle shifts in light and shadow, peeling back layers of memory as if uncovering the history embedded in the place. The geometric patterns formed by the old building's outlines and their shadows suggested something beyond mere landscape paintings. These sketches demonstrate an astonishing observational skill. A critic paused in front of the artwork, engrossed in the patterns formed by the shadows of buildings. He reads unseen ciphers, a true artist's gaze. As the first day of the exhibition drew to a close at dusk, Terence and Thomas were working on a new painting imbued with 30 years of feelings for their mother. Their brushstrokes no longer needed ciphers, aiming purely to convey the truth of their hearts. "Mom," Thomas called out. "It feels like we're finally able to paint in the truest sense." Terence nodded in agreement. "Until now, we painted to hide the truth. But from now on, we want to paint to illuminate it." Olivia's eyes glistened with tears, not of sorrow, but of relief that all pieces had finally come together. She watched the setting sun cast a warm glow on her son's new work, smiling quietly. Weeks later, the work to return the artworks began in earnest, with Catherine taking a pivotal role as a special advisor at the museum. Her decade-long research records became crucial documents proving the provenance of the artworks, earning her recognition. Artworks can be witnesses of history and sometimes keys to recovering lost truths. During the return process, a touching reunion occurred. On a brisk morning, an elderly gentleman with an old leather bag visited Olivia's shop. "This sculpture," he pointed to a photo of a small bronze statue found in the warehouse. "This is what my grandfather spent his life searching for." From his bag, he retrieved a yellowed diary, opening it to a page with a sketch of the sculpture accompanied by meticulous daily entries. "My grandfather talked about this sculpture until his last years." His voice trembled slightly. "It contains precious memories of our family. My father, his son, was lost in the war. This sculpture was the last piece he worked on." The last page of the diary, written in shaky handwriting, read, "Even if it isn't found in my lifetime, this piece will surely return to the light of day. Art harbors souls, and souls always return to where they belong." Grandfather was right, he smiled quietly. With the arrival of spring, Olivia's antique shop began to show a new face. Regular small exhibitions were held, showcasing works by up-and-coming young artists. The old and the new, the past and the present, quietly wove a dialogue in this space. The dual-signed painting remained prominently displayed, alongside parts of the Harrison brothers' records and stories. of the post-war lost artworks, carefully explained for visitors who sometimes pause to reflect on the truths revealed after long years. Terence and Thomas's new works gradually attracted attention in the art world, their combined individualities now hitting hearts not as ciphers, but as pure artistic expressions, shining with deep insight and newfound freedom. One evening, Olivia was quietly wiping the shop's windows as usual. The sunset through the stained glass painted bands of colorful light on the floor. And in that light, the children of the art class painted freely on their canvases. Art is mysterious, Olivia mused, watching the sunset through the window. It acts like a mirror that reflects truths across time. And the image in that mirror carries different colors for each viewer. But it's those differences that enrich us all. Every artwork has its story. Sometimes hidden, sometimes forgotten. But its truth will always catch someone's eye eventually. That was what the Harrison brothers had believed, and now, in this place, that belief was being passed on in new forms.